Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 drama. After Fred Vasseur's very first day at Ferrari, rumours are circulating that changes are already being made. Apparently he's going to fire the head of their strategy department and make some other operational changes behind the scenes to try and improve their run going into 2023, with some other cautious optimism about other elements of their project. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments down below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. I actually recorded the majority of this video yesterday, but I'm going to splice in the stuff here about the Rueda stuff of actually the head of strategy potentially getting binned off. Fred Vasseur has officially now joined Ferrari. His kind of time ended on Alfa Romeo Sauber at the end of last year. Now he's at Ferrari. Over the coming days, he's going to sort a fair few things out. This season, probably again, if it's going to be successful for Ferrari, will be determined by reliability, by strategy, and by operational issues. Their car will more than likely be good again. That is at least our understanding. Their engine will probably be even better. Whether they're good enough as a team already to compete with Red Bull, potentially Mercedes, that's going to be the key point. They've got a decent driver lineup for sure. Leclerc unreal in qualifying, great in the race. Sainz also great in the race. But how quickly can Fred Vasseur turn this ship around if he is able to, right? Because we know the strategy team not looking so good. Whether he has the balls to make the key hires and fires that might be necessary, that maybe Binotto should have done to take this team in the right direction, we shall see. But, you know, his career is starting there now, and we'll see how this goes over the coming weeks. Obviously, we know this job can be a bit of a poison chalice, and we'll see how long it takes Vasseur to implement the regime and the structure he wants to have. Whether that's a changing of the guard in the strategy department, I would not be surprised, but whether he thinks that's worth it this quickly, right? Just because, you know, massive changes internally might not be so optimal to, you know, so conducive to a successful runway into the season. We'll see how it goes, but he's obviously got to make those calls over the coming days. And just as I say there about not being surprised if changes are being made, rumours are now circulating here from Fastest Pitstop on Twitter that changes are coming for Ferrari. Among the key figures rumoured to leave, chief strategist Iñaki Rueda may be one of them. This is one of the guys that people have been wondering, in fairness, for years at this point. How does he still have a job? The strategy's always been a joke at Ferrari for a long period of time, and he's been the head guy there. And there's been some questions whether Binotto should have been more ruthless in terms of getting rid of this guy or making some changes, but apparently Vasseur's already looking to make moves. He's held his first meetings with various individuals, has met, of course, with those important personalities at the Scuderia, and the meeting took place in a friendly, relaxed atmosphere, but wants to get rid of some guys and wants to move some people to another team. Among those who are certainly at risk right now, not necessarily been for sure fired, but nonetheless at risk of being cut or losing their job, is Iñaki Rueda. Chief strategist for Ferrari, has been blamed for many critical decisions made in various Grand Prix last year at Ferrari, at the Scuderia Ferrari. This is the guy in question, and you guys might not have really seen his face too much, because usually when you see a picture of him, it's this picture with his face covered up with a clown mask. So there's a good chance that Vasseur's coming in and really going to restore order here. Whether a change in the strategy department now, very shortly before the start of the season, is enough leeway to actually help them improve, I don't know. But nonetheless, I think he's probably doing what Binotto should have done last season. Now, on the Binotto side, it's now been reportedly confirmed here that they've given financial compensation to Binotto, as in a hell of a lot of money, to ensure he spends the next 12 months on gardening leave. That means away from the sport. That means can't sign anything with another team. This makes sense and is sensible. There was some rumours when he was initially fired that, oh yeah, is he going to join Mercedes for the new year? Is he going to join, you know, Audi Sauber in the future in the new year? Of course, they're not Audi Sauber yet. But yeah, the next 12 months will be out. That he's not going to be in Formula 1 for the next 12 months, collecting the paycheck, sitting at home, having a good time. But yeah, still, this is used to prevent him joining rival teams. Sensible move, kind of frustrating, I'm sure, maybe even for Binotto, but I'm sure he's negotiated a respectable arrangement there for himself, but also for the fans. I think people would have liked to see Binotto go elsewhere immediately, but the reality is, you know, they don't really want him to just take everything that they were doing at Ferrari, bring it to a new team immediately. Probably not in their best interest, and also just not something that usually happens regardless. So yes, 12 months Binotto has to sit there and chill before he can come back. By that time, right, it's got to be said that Alfa Romeo Sauber may already be Audi Sauber, or they may be getting there. There's definitely been some significant rumours that that might be one of the key operational futures that Binotto might have in mind, and they might have him in mind as well from an engine development side. So one to keep your eyes on, but that's a big update on the Binotto front. Now let's talk about the engine, right? So Giuliano De Kessa says in the same article here about the new ICE, the new internal combustion engine, that has now been strengthened, and so has the head of that department, the head of the power unit department. Long runs are now underway, so they're already putting this engine through its paces here, and apparently its performance is way better than before. This is kind of the discussion. The power power unit is now revised and modified compared to last season, so you can't change the hardware on the power unit in terms of performance, but you can increase reliability. So the idea is if you can increase the reliability of your engine, therefore you can run it at a higher level of performance, therefore you effectively extract performance anyway, despite the fact that you're not really allowed to extract further performance because the engine freeze came into effect last year. The power unit apparently will now contain new parts to improve the turbo management under porpoising oscillations at high speeds. So quite interesting that they're still concerned about porpoising here, or the effect that that could have on the engine, but also the turbo in general was a bit of an issue for Ferrari, has been for quite some time. I think they have a smaller turbo than the other engines tend to use, and that usually means that at the higher altitude tracks such as Mexico, their turbo just doesn't like it at all, and it has far weaker performance than the other teams on the grid. We saw that in full force in Mexico this year, where Ferrari were just so slow it was obnoxious, at least for Ferrari fans, and they still managed to get second in the championship because at least they survived those races without their engines exploding by turning down their engine performance quite significantly. Now, there is again cautious optimism at Ferrari. This admittedly is a yearly occurrence at this point. There's always cautious optimism from Ferrari, also from Ferrari fans, and whether that actually translates into success, that's far from a guarantee. But nonetheless, it's expected that their engine can run at maximum power with its reliability issues addressed. Now, maximum power is always a bit of an overstatement because they're never going to max out their engine and run it on 100% whack all the time, because if you do, there's no way it's going to live. None of the teams run at absolute maximum power. But if you can get close enough and increase the level quite significantly, that is of course a key advantage for Ferrari in terms of pure horsepower, and they've gone on to say that there are now repeated long run sessions going on at maximum power, unlike last winter, which kind of goes to show that yes, the kind of reliability upgrades are working as intended, and there is cautious optimism, again that word being thrown in, that they will be able to carry out the entire season with no more than 4 power units. So I mean, look, the teams usually will have 4 engines. This is the thing, the 3 engine limit is, well, it's not really a limit, right? You can break it and you have to take a grid penalty, but it turns out realistically to be worth it to take 4, run the engines at a higher level on average, and then take a 1 grid penalty some race you can easily overtake, and realistically that's the more intelligent way to go about it, right, than to actually only take 3. If you can get away with 3, great, but last season Leclerc took, what, 6, I want to say? I think Sainz and Leclerc both took 6 engines, because they, I mean, a couple of them blew up, of course, early on. Then they had to take, I mean, I think, what, Leclerc took his first penalty back in Canada, then there was definitely one he took at Austin. Did he not take another one as well at Spa? So there was quite a few penalties they had with new engines. They had like 6 last year, and of course a couple of them exploded, which didn't help, so they're hopeful they can just use 4. Whether that's going to actually happen, I don't know. Of course, intrigue your thoughts in the comment section below on that one. Will they have the reliability required? But will the power be a massive advantage for them? Because combined with the aero, that should be pretty good as well. If it's based on last year's car as well, then yeah, should be pretty good for Ferrari. But nonetheless, it really was the other factors that held them back. The quali pace last year was great. Yes, it really was, to me, the development they made in the middle of the season that made the tyre wear worse. That was bad. But also, probably you could even look at Spain and certainly Baku and say, well, those 2 races kind of chalked up the season in a way early on, because Red Bull was so consistent after that, as of course was Max Verstappen. But those engines that were lost at that point kind of compromised their entire year, because they had to take more penalties. Like, for example, Leclerc in Canada starting from all the way at the back, like that was a tough race for him, meant that Verstappen gained more points on Leclerc. It's things like that that really affect the season. So, I mean, look, if they want to turn up the power, sure, but they need to really ensure they don't have any more engine blowouts like they did before, because that forces you penalties and you lose all the points you would have gained. So they've got to make sure that doesn't happen, but they seem confident they can do exactly that. Quick note as well from Renault, because of course they make the Alpine engines, or Renault Alpine, basically the same deal. So, the FIA needs to make things harder for engine makers to ensure the reliability changes don't translate into a performance gain. And this is quite a good point, let's be honest here, because the governing body, they are meant to audit the financial stuff, right? The financial cost cap type thing. We talked a fair bit about that over the last few months, but also they've got to kind of reinforce and supplement the discussions around the actual technical directives. And how do they ensure that, okay, the teams can work on their engine for reliability? They can change parts, they can add additional things to make it more reliable, sure. So how can you ensure that those changes aren't actually giving performance gain? Because as I say, they are indirectly giving performance gain because you can turn the engine up. But, can you ensure that all the changes made, like what if the team says, oh yeah, we're just adding this for reliability reasons, and the FIA is like, oh, okay, I guess fair enough, sounds reasonable enough, whereas actually they're using it for some other advantage that isn't reliability, but it's actually just pure performance because they figured something new out. I don't know, but it's quite a good point for Renault to say, look, the FIA's got to deal with this carefully because, yeah, we've got to have some intelligent blokes in the FIA to figure out whether what they're doing is actually reliability or whether they are kind of bringing reliability under another heading, let's say, or bringing performance under the reliability heading, in the same way that with the cost cap now in effect, there's been some discussions, oh, okay, you know, can this particular team be making these particular parts in this particular factory in another country, but say that this development is happening for a complete other purpose, therefore does it get around the cost cap? You know, the teams are going to do tricky stuff. It is how it is. So I think a fair point from Renault and Alpine. And just speaking of Ferrari, thought this was kind of funny here with Leclerc. We looked at Hamilton earlier today in Antarctica. Leclerc's also on an absolute mission here. Looks not dangerous at all, of course. I mean, he's got the ropes and everything, so I'm sure he'll be fine. But yeah, I'm still sure that Fred Vasseur is looking at this thinking, oh my God, Charles, please no. We don't want any disasters in terms of, you know, any potential injuries that could occur before the start of the new season. And I guess it's something the team bosses have to manage quite closely to ensure that their drivers are happy and can do what they like and have free time, but you know, nonetheless, and have good experiences, right, to recharge, but also ensure they don't get any potential issues before the start of the new season. Because in football, if someone gets injured in like a, you know, an accident or has some other issue, you know, you've got 11 players on the team, you can sub in someone else and okay, they recover for 6 weeks, it's okay. In Formula 1, like, you can't afford any of your drivers to have any issues because, you know, a backup driver doesn't really work, and every race missed is, at least for a guy like Charles Leclerc, would be a massive loss for the championship. So I'm sure we'll be fine, but I just think it's one thing that the team bosses, I'm sure, are still thinking about. But very much enjoyed your thoughts down below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.